How's it going, speedsters? Welcome to my episode 2 breakdown of The Flash, season 7, The Speed of Thought. And yes, we're going to talk about the episode, of course, and break it down as we do, but I really want to get to that post-credit scene. So straight away, I'm going to get into this video, but by the way, check out my video from yesterday if you haven't already. I think it's one a lot of you will like. I rank 25 HBO Max super suits, so we're talking like the suits from Doom Patrol, Titans, Stargirl. I did miss out Cyborg, I'm sorry about that. But hey, it was a fun video to make, so go check that out. But other than that, like this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and of course, subscribe for more Flash breakdowns like this. So this episode I like to call Barry kind of just went Vulcan. And it was an interesting thing, I suppose, the speed thinking, because it just led to a very strange Barry who thought he was doing everything right, but it kind of backfired against his own team, which led to a very surprising Killer Frost moment. But let's start from the beginning. So at the beginning, we had this montage or tribute to Wells in this kind of remembrance room. I believe we had even little artifacts, if you will, from H.R. Wells with the drumsticks, and I believe we saw Nora's speedster suit there. Did we see Jesse Quick's speedster suit there? I have no idea how they would have got that. Maybe I'm wrong though, but I'm pretty sure maybe that was it. But you may have spotted one or two other cool little things in that room. And I think just having Cisco back this episode, because technically this is, even though we're finishing off the season 6 storyline, this is our first appearance of Cisco in season 7, and it just really highlights how much of a wrong decision I think it was. I mean, I'm not putting that solely on everyone, by the way. Maybe there was some weird behind the scenes reason as to why Cisco wasn't in the filming for the previous episode, but it just would have been perfect. And I read a lot of your comments from last week's review that it's like really weird to kind of say goodbye to all the Wells, or Wellses if you know what I mean, without Cisco Ramon there. But it is what it is, and we kind of got that little beginning bit at the start of this episode to kind of address that in a way. But this is when the speed healing plot really kickstarted in, because this week we don't have Chester. So Cisco proposes one of Chester's ideas, and we get the new power demonstrated by Barry. Barry has become the new thinker, because even though Cisco hasn't actually written that out on the wall yet, Barry can already see that future happening through the probability of what Cisco would have written down. At least that's how I'm gathering it. There's a billion things I suppose Cisco could write, but Barry can calculate the most likely one, and that's how he already knows in that moment what plan or what proposing ideas of Chester's Cisco was going to detail on that board. Now, I know Eric Wallace said the artificial speed force is kind of like a temporary measure, and I'm kind of happy with that, because I was mentioning in my last review how with the new Speed Force, I thought maybe we would have got more of a glorifying Speed Force moment. Kind of reminiscent to that of when Barry was running through the Speed Force. He saw things for the first time of the future, the past, whatever, right? I expected some kind of wormhole alien thing happening, but apparently this is just a temporary measure until we get another one up and running again. So the downside of that, we're kind of having this storyline dragged out in the sense that we still need Barry to actually get one, but I don't know, are you guys with me that, like, the artificial speed force is cool and everything, but I kind of wanted more of a grand, original Speed Force-esque thing to happen compared to that of what we got at the end of last week's episode. What I kind of like about this as well is I thought speed thinking would be way too overpowered, so I'm glad that this isn't going to be a thing that continues on. So after running tests on Barry's neurons, he's more or less got an enhanced cognition via Speed Force booster shot. As we kind of already went over, this allows him to analyze every variable in every scenario and predict the unpredictable. We saw demonstrations of this, for example, with that weird kind of little floaty ball thing. He knew exactly what variable would lead to him catching it, and then all of a sudden he knows the way to open the portal to the Mirrorverse. So Barry explains to Team Flash that Ramsey's unique cells created a bond with the molecules in Ava's mirror portal, and that more or less formed this bio-friendly skin on the interdimensional barrier, and those photons are still on Ava, meaning that if they collected them, they could use those photons to open up their own portal and thus hopefully retrieve everyone they want to get in the Mirrorverse, which is Iris, Singh, and Camilla. And due to the nature of this episode, of course, there had to be a thinker reference. I mean, how could they resist? So they did say that they also wanted to link the neural net in the thinker's chair to enable all of this planned stuff to happen. But at the same time, I was kind of thinking, but technically the thinker was kind of in that chair before they just pulled the plug. So I'm just wondering, like, technically, if they're linking the neural net to the Thinker's chair, could he now be out there in the system somewhere? I mean, obviously, that is just Wild West speculation, but it's just kind of fun to imagine that, oh, maybe now electronically somehow in some way, since they use the Thinker's chair, he could be swimming around out there in the AI land of electronic signal. I don't know. Like, I just thought I'd chuck that out there for fun. Another example of how I personally would have hated this moving forward, like Barry can literally predict with a 97% chance where one of the last black hole stashes are. So it's like, man, everything would just be so contrived to plot if this power was a thing. As for Ava's side of things, she's just looking at the clip of her dying, or technically not her, but the real her dying again and again on repeat. This is where the Sun Lady comes in. I can't remember the metahuman name for her, but her name is Rawlins, I believe. And as I kind of thought last episode, it wasn't spelled out explicitly to us, but Iris did a few things with the mirror a couple of times in last week's episode where it kind of rippled, and she was just looking at herself like this, kind of teasing us that she had some kind of powery kind of control in the Mirrorverse, and Iris said that she's been in there so long that the things happening could indeed be giving her some kind of control over what she can do. You could argue in some weird speculation she could come out of this as the new Mirror Master, but please God, I really don't want that to be the case. The only reason I'm saying that is because they're teasing her manipulation of the mirror world, and technically through bringing her through, maybe she has some residual manipulation to the mirror side of things even while in the real world, just kind of like what this Ava duplicate has. But I don't know about that. But this is where the first controversial thing happens with Mr. Barry Allen, and that is when they go to the Black Hole Stash site, see Ava there, Barry's got the tachyon device on him, and Killer Frost is on the scene as a little surprise. And while Ava is distracted with a little bit of Voldemort versus Harry wand battle between Ava and Killer Frost, he collects the photon energy stuff off of Ava, and in his prediction, he had to kind of allow Killer Frost to get hit. I mean, I think we all already knew that in that moment without needing an explanation, that Barry remained very neutral to let that happen for a specific reason. But obviously to Cisco, he's like, dude, you could have saved her. And this is when you knew things were getting very wrong with Barry, because he detailed that there was a 0.0002% chance of that if he did get involved, the tachyon enhancer would get damaged. I don't know about you, Barry, but that's a very low chance. So you could have done something. And I feel like so many things were happening in this episode to rush things forward. Not necessarily in a bad way. It's just like now, because Barry has speed thinking, he figured out that Ava isn't even Ava. She's the duplicate Ava. Just through process of elimination with his thinker brain. And what Barry decided to do is kind of antagonize his enemy even more through exposing her on TV when she was having that interview talking about her technologies to that news reporter, and then the news reporter did like, if you're not Ava McCulloch, then who are you? And thus kind of exposing Ava to the world, which indirectly kickstarts her plan to really, well, if this world isn't going to accept me, or I'm not going to accept it because I technically am not from this world, let's make this world my world, which showed us later on with that CCPD officer getting grabbed in the elevator, and in combination with the trailer for next week's episode, everyone who technically looks at a reflective mirror surface is going to have their mirrorverse duplicate of them, try and swap them out, so this world, our reality, the real world, will be full of mirrorverse replicants, and thus will become the new world that Ava likes, full of mirror people and mirror everything. So kind of like a cliche villainy plan, but I'm down for it. I mean, obviously it's not going to work out for Ava, kind of obvious, but, you know, looking forward to see how that final boss battle goes down, because technically, if you think about it, this is kind of the penultimate episode of Season 6, because it ends... Like the Ava McCulloch storyline finishes next episode, I believe. Barry's also so smart that he even outthinks Gideon, who thanks him for a more efficient method of going about things, and Barry was more or less correct, because everything he saw in that simulation, I kind of like the twist they did there, that them having a vote and this, that, and the other was just really, oh, that's what he was thinking in that moment. So he decides not to tell the team because he knows that they would choose Singh and Camilla over Iris. So Barry basically does this all solo, but not before Cisco getting involved. And I also liked the kind of reverse Flash explanation here as to why they didn't want to risk creating an artificial speed force based on emotion, because I mean, they could have gone with love, I suppose, but then maybe Barry would have been, I don't know, imbued with too much love, rather than, in this case, no emotion, meaning he's basically become Vulcan. Obviously, if they would have gone negative, it would have created like a negative Speed Force 2.0, but I'm intrigued to see what it would have happened if it was really just imbued and based off of positive Speed Force love energy. Barry definitely crosses the line by calling Camilla and Singh expendable. This triggers Cisco, and as a result, Team Flash confront Barry. And one of the measures that Cisco must have thought of is to give Killer Frost Velocity X. And I thought this was a cool moment. I mean, it was a surprise twist. I think everyone's blowing the crap out of it, but for me, it was just a little bit of fun. If anything, there was this moment in it that I thought was just a bit like very typical Flash in terms of there's many moments where he could do something, but the episode kind of lets either this person not get saved or this person to get hit when they could have sped away. Before anyone perceives me as raining on the parade, this was really cool. Seeing a hybrid Killer Frost infused with a bluey Killer Frosty-like white-esque lightning energy. We saw Killer Frost versus Flash speedster chase while she's using her frost powers. And I'm not gonna lie though, even though Killer Frost has speed healing, did you see the distance that she fell and hit that car? I'm pretty sure you would go splat, but okay. And the other bit I was on about in this moment is that when Killer Frost charges up her Hadouken blast infused with Speed Force Velocity X energy, Barry just stands there. He watches it happen, he watches it fly, comes towards him, and he gets hit. Why didn't he dodge? One thing I also did appreciate with another detail is that Allegra was wearing Nash's pouches. In this episode, she kind of kept thinking about Nash. We had that whole scene with Cecile. And yeah, it's just kind of like she's Nash 2.0 with the bandolier, if that's what you call them, of Nash's equipped. Anyway, though, on to the meat of the episode towards the end now. Barry opens the portal, is more Vulcan than ever. Even Iris West picks this up about her husband. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't. And due to earlier on in the episode, Camilla and Singh basically glitching out with their eyes for being in the Mirrorverse through being sent with the gun rather than Ava herself, they're glitching out a little bit sooner, I'm guessing. Iris wants to put it through the others first, but Barry is just not having that and turns up the device to max to basically pull Iris through like a magnet, and she does come through. I thought they were just going to keep teasing it as she did while she resisted to the point of where she would have resisted successfully, but no, she actually gets pulled through and she's now in the real world. Like, Iris is back. She's literally back. In all of this as well, Barry's just like, this is not the outcome I predicted, because he didn't expect any hesitation from Iris. In this moment, you kind of see the destruction that Barry has wrought through his Vulcan-like attitude. His whole Team Flash is still unconscious on the floor, and you have Iris kind of fitting almost in a Mirrorverse fit, I suppose you would say, glitching out, I'm guessing through being in the real world again. It's good, definitely. I remember reading this from ages ago as well. Even when Iris comes through, it's going to take a bit of adapting for her to be here again. But in this moment, some confusing, I guess I would call it confusing things happened. So Barry decides to kind of yeet his Speed Force energy into the artificial Speed Force machine, the ASF as they call it, and then he gets struck like as if from the Speed Force god himself with some whitey bluey-esque kind of lightning energy, as if it was like a punishment. So was Barry disregarding the artificial Speed Force in that moment because he saw the fallout of what his Vulcan-like emotionless attitude brought, where he thought it was beneficial? He then saw it, he disregarded the artificial Speed Force. So is that kind of gone now? The artificial Speed Force isn't with him? Is that what that was? And is that why he had that kind of exorcism almost of different colored Speed Force energy? And so as a result, he thought, screw this artificial Speed Force energy, and got rid of it. And then I'm guessing that white Speed Force-esque energy effect was just the final exorcism of that artificial Speed Force energy leaving his system. Would love to know your thoughts on that. And that's basically where we leave things off, with everyone on the floor. Iris is glitching out. Things don't look very good, but at least Barry's kind of got back to his, or it's kind of visibly so that he's got back to his humane aspects and emotional aspects of himself. And this is where we get the after credit scene, where it says, once upon a time. Now, I kind of do believe that this is the Reverse Flash original intended cliffhanger for season 6. I think that was meant to be reserved for the finale. Like, maybe they were going to do the whole Wells thing last season, but then introduce that even though they died, there is one left, and that kind of would have been like, oh, for the off season until season 7, we'd all be wondering, oh man, like, what is going on with this new original Harrison Wells? But really, we're going to find out probably fairly soon within season 7, because we don't have a whole season break, obviously. So in this moment, we come to that moment in season 1 where Eobard Thawne was getting ready to drain Harrison Wells' image. The process begins, and just like what we saw back then, Harrison Wells of Earth 1, the original Harrison Wells, dies, and Eobard has the Harrison Wells identity, which then ensues in that timeline for him to pretend to take on that persona. So everything carries on as it would have, or did. But we also see kind of what Eobard did after that. So he dug a grave, he put the skeleton of Harrison Wells in that grave, he put the soil back in the grave, all in very speedster, negative speed force energy dashing across the screen. However, the confusing thing that I can't make any sense of is that we see these kind of particles, and I feel like we've seen this kind of signature of animation or CGI before. So if you can remember, maybe it can link to how or what brought this Harrison Wells back, but either way, he re-energizes, Star Trek style. Like, there's a bit of Star Trek-y things going on with the Vulcan. Either way, he re-energizes into the original Harrison Wells. So I'm guessing that is many years later, like into present day. Like, he didn't energize back then, because otherwise we would have known Harrison Wells for quite a while by now, since he would have been around for a while. So I'm assuming he re-energized, came back to life in present day, and we'll see him soon. But it doesn't look, at least from the next episode trailer, that they're going to address that, but obviously they can't include the whole plot in a trailer. One thing I really like about this, obviously Tom Cavanaugh wasn't done, and people were wondering how he was going to come back. Well, we're going to get him back in a way that was kind of always his original intended role. So it's kind of come full circle in a sense. He is playing a Harrison Wells we've technically never met before, and he's playing the original Harrison Wells. Like, I'm excited to get to know that guy. And it's going to be, yeah, I'm really fascinated by that. What more can I say other than some people may be like, I'm so done with Wells, but like, all of those Welleses are put out the picture now. Now we have Tom Cavanaugh back as a singular role, a role that was technically always the original role, and one we still have yet to get to know. And I'm really looking forward to that dynamic, because this is a Harrison Wells who is a very smart one of Earth 1. We kind of technically know what he's like in a way through Eobard pretending to be like him. So I would love to know what you think of that after credits, if you will, because it was definitely a surprise that nobody saw coming. So overall, everyone, I thought this was a decent episode. I keep kind of forgetting that these episodes are going to be a little bit better than what I expected, because 701, 702, and 703 are wrapping up the Season 6 storyline, so technically these are those final episodes of a prior season that would, or should, at least with one's expectations, be quite impressive, because it's the end of a season's arc. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next episode. This episode was decent. I wouldn't put it up on a massive pedestal, but I was still pleasantly surprised by it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm just really looking forward to getting on to the next storyline, like pure Season 7 stuff, even though I do want to note that I'm enjoying this more than what I thought I would. Go ahead and like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter in a top pinned comment. In the comment section, I have links to the Discord server, my Patreon, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.